Tonight, a life so tragically and heartbreakingly short. Sophia Smith was just 11 days old when she died at a Glasgow hospital. Her parents hope an inquiry will provide answers. Also making the headlines, plans to send UK peacekeeping troops to Ukraine and emergency defence talks in Paris. Uncertain times for those who have made Scotland their home.
Decision being made, without even Ukrainian people being asked what they want.
And we're in Germany with Celtic as Brendan Rodgers and his men prepare for tomorrow night's huge Champions League clash against Bayern Munich.
I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. We hope that by the end of this process, we will know the truth about why our daughter's life was so tragically and heartbreakingly short. The parents of Sophia Smith, who was only 11 days old when she died at the Royal Hospital for Children in Glasgow in 2017. She had contracted a toxic strain of the MRSA bug. A fatal accident inquiry into her death began today. Her parents say they felt stonewalled by the Health Board following their daughter's death. A warning, this report by Caitlin Hutchison contains distressing details.
It's been an agonising 8-year wait for parents Matthew and Teresa Smith. But the fatal accident inquiry into the death of their baby, Sophia, has finally begun.
It's been a long road to get to this milestone that we have reached today. We are pleased that a fatal accident inquiry has been finally set up and hope that by the end of this process we will know the truth about our daughter and why her life was so tragically and heartbreakingly cut short.
Sophia was just 11 days old when she died after contracting an infection similar to MRSA that developed into sepsis. The opening day of the inquiry has focused on the days leading up to Sophia's distressing death. A joint minute of agreed facts stated that Sophia had been transferred from Paisley, where she was born, to the neonatal intensive care unit at Glasgow's Royal Hospital for Children due to breathing difficulties and a possible heart issue. Tests for infection upon admission came back clear, and in subsequent days, Sophia underwent invasive medical procedures, including a bronchoscopy and the insertion of a catheter via her foot. When she died, the primary causes of death were noted as pulmonary hemorrhage and cardiomyopathy, but post-mortem results showed signs of serious infection, which the parents were then told could have played a role in her death. Sophia's parents, who said they'll fight to their last breath for answers, today said her death came like a bolt out of the blue. Matthew told the inquiry that Sophia had been progressing well and they had been told she was coming out of the death danger zone. But by day 9 or 10, her condition was deteriorating rapidly, quickly noticed by Teresa.
I was saying something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. I may as well have been headbutting a wall. The baby was white, ghostly white, almost translucent. And when I tried to get a doctor, I was told they were busy. Why couldn't they walk 12 steps to Sophia's bed? Why did it take multiple hours? I was concerned about infection. She had turned black from the waist down, and I was told, no, it's not an infection.
In the years since, Matthew and Teresa say they felt stonewalled by the Health Board.
We get half-truths or lies, nothing at all coming back. It's been 8 years of absolute hell. On top of losing our child, we've endured this monumental task of being heard. I'm hoping some good can come out of this hell. If we can stop this from happening to other families, then Sophia's life will not have been in vain.
The Queen Elizabeth University Hospital has faced various allegations over safety concerns since it opened in 2015. Police previously carried out an investigation into Sophia's death alongside other fatalities there, but no link was found. A spokesperson for NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde say they extend their deepest condolences and will implement any findings from the FAI. For Matthew and Teresa, this inquiry is about finding out where this infection came from, whether it was preventable and whether their baby would have lived if it were not for this terrible infection. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News, the Sheriff Court in Glasgow.
The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has said he's ready and willing to send British troops to Ukraine as peacekeepers. It follows the shock announcement by the US President Donald Trump that he'll negotiate directly with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, while also stepping back from guaranteeing European security. As our Westminster correspondent Paris Gurtsianis reports, it has Ukrainian refugees and world leaders alike wondering what's next.
For the Ukrainian refugee families Tatiana Barnes supports in Glasgow, suddenly the world feels very different.
It's a big shock for Ukrainians because decision being made without even Ukrainian people being asked what they want.
US President Donald Trump says he'll negotiate peace in Ukraine with Russia, even if Ukraine and Europe aren't in the room.
What guarantee Donald Trump will give us to actually sleep well and thinking about our future and build our future and make sure our kids actually have peaceful future? That's the question.
It's a changed world too for European leaders who gathered for a crisis summit in Paris. They have to work out how to keep the peace without American military help for the first time since World War II. It means British troops could be on their way to Ukraine.
We're facing a generational challenge when it comes to national security. Obviously, the immediate question is the future of Ukraine, and we must continue to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position, whatever happens next.
Tanya Mashenska also knows a bit about having your world change overnight. Her family were forced to flee their homes in southern Ukraine.
That was a very difficult decision, but we decided that that is most important to save life of our daughter, and that's why we decided to leave.
Now her relatives live under Russian occupation.
They have totally different life because they had to accept Russian passports, all their documents, so they count like Russian citizens, unfortunately now. And it's quite dangerous because they can't tell what they think. It's quite dangerous even to go outside because every day it's drone attacks.
For Ukrainian families, dramatic change on the world stage brings hope mixed with worry.
It's a very important moment, not only for Ukrainian, it's also an important moment for the whole world because, as you know, our biggest fear, Putin never stop.
For world leaders, the worry is the same.
Paris joins us from Downing Street. Paris, how likely is it that British troops will be deployed to Ukraine?
Well, John, there's huge uncertainty over all of this, thanks to the dramatic pronouncements from the Trump administration over the past week. European leaders, including the Prime Minister, are still scrambling for a response. They've effectively been told by Donald Trump, I'll negotiate the peace, you're going to pay for it. And even if a peace deal can be agreed, even if Ukraine accepts it, it'll take tens of thousands of troops. So which other European countries are going to step up? Can the UK even afford a deployment like that? Is the British Army still big enough? All we know for certain is that Donald Trump has ripped up decades of rules around security and diplomacy. He wants a deal, and he wants it fast.
Paris in Downing Street, thank you. Meanwhile, millions of children in Ukraine are now suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Since the beginning of the war, one mother and daughter have been trying to combat the lasting effects of the conflict through art. Now they're exhibiting the children's paintings across the world and plan to bring the display to Scotland later this year. Amy Flett reports.
While this may look like ordinary children's artwork, if you look closely, each painting tells the same story. In the days following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a mother and daughter headed out to shelters, orphanages and hospitals to give children an outlet from their pain and suffering through art.
This is the first days of the war and we need to do something. We can't stay home. So the first place where we go is orphanage with kids with autism. So this is small orphanage in Lviv where before were only 35 kids and then 85 more come at first days of the war ends. Then we go to Okhmudit hospital where we met a lot of kids who were injured by war. Kids really need those therapies through art because they are really traumatized. Most of them see war, see death and a lot of cruel situation. So we try to solve those problems through art to make them feel much better.
Research has found that almost half of children in Ukraine show signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, but the number is believed to be far higher. 4-year-old Olejek developed a speech problem after his father died in the war, but he found communication through this, drawing the building where he and his family lived. His art is among hundreds of children's paintings being displayed across the world.
The stories of the children are the stories that aren't necessarily heard, and they are stories that no child should ever have to tell. And as time has gone on, knowledge and information about what is happening in Ukraine has become less and less important to us here in the West. And those stories still need to be told because they are still happening. But an easy way to communicate what is happening in Ukraine is to tell the children's stories.
Following an exclusive exhibition at the Scottish Parliament, many MSPs say it's clear that Ukraine should be at the heart of any negotiations.
It showed the hopes, the aspirations and the vision for the future that young Ukrainians have for their country. We cannot afford to reward the aggressor, and we must ensure that we help provide a bright future for Ukrainian children and all of the people of Ukraine.
The Scottish Government said it has taken strong action to ensure the health and welfare of all displaced Ukrainians. Next week will mark 3 years since the war in Ukraine began. The charity plans to return to Scotland later this year to exhibit the artwork here so that people can experience the conflict through the eyes of Ukraine's children. Amy Flett, STV News.
More than 1,000 workers at Scottish Water have voted for strike action in a pay dispute. Unison says the company has failed to make a fair pay offer. The Scottish Water spokesperson says they remain committed to reaching an agreement with the unions that avoids industrial action, and its offer of a 3.4% pay rise is significantly above inflation.
Well, members are angry because we're in this situation because Scottish Water are privatising by stealth. The workforce are bearing the brunt of this right now, but it's going to impact on the whole of Scotland in the end. Scottish Water are neglecting their own workforce to pay fat cap profits to the private sector, and this is not in anyone in Scotland's interest.
An Edinburgh teenager has been sentenced to 55 hours of community service for his part in bonfire night disorder. 19-year-old Dean Gorey admitted hurling fireworks towards both police and the public in the Niddrie area in 2023. He avoided a prison sentence due to good behaviour and holding down a scaffolding apprenticeship. 2 Premiership football clubs are investigating after allegations of racist abuse were made during a game. St Johnstone say they're working with police and Kilmarnock after an alleged incident in the away end of their game at Rugby Park on Saturday. Both clubs say they won't tolerate racism or discrimination in any form. 2 climbers have been airlifted to hospital after being rescued in the Cairngorms. Cairngorm Mountain Rescue Team were called out to Corrie and Sneachka after a snow collapse yesterday afternoon. The male and female climbers were injured after hardened snow gave way. The casualties were flown off the hill by the Coast Guard helicopter from Inverness. A driver who murdered a man and left another in a wheelchair after a hit and run is facing life in jail. Michael Day killed Thomas Bowers and hit Stephen Byrne in Glasgow's Springburn in April 2023. Day, who only had a provisional licence at the time when he struck the men, he'll be sentenced next month. A 9-year-old boy is in hospital with serious injuries after a crash involving a bus. The child was riding a bike at the time of the incident, which happened between Glasgow Road in Kilmarnock and the A77 yesterday. Argyll and Bute Council will have to raise council tax by 8.9% to have a balanced budget over the next financial year. The authority will set spending plans next Thursday with a gap of £14.9 million being projected. It's estimated the figure will reduce by more than £2 million based with savings and a 5% council tax increase. Migrants, refugees and asylum seekers in Glasgow have been benefiting from £500,000 of Scottish Government funding for English lessons. The classes can be key to employment for those settling in the country, but many face years on waiting lists due to rising demand, and education leaders say they need longer-term commitment from ministers. Tara Fitzpatrick has more.
What do we think this one was? Is big, right? The verb to be. Simon?
It's one of the most important skills needed to build a life in Scotland. English classes like this one at Glasgow Clyde College can be the key to employment and integration for migrants, refugees and asylum seekers.
Learning English because before I need job. It's challenging because I'm not talking before I'm coming in Ethiopia. Here I'm not English. Only yes, no. Now better I'm talking, better I'm writing, I'm reading.
I am studying in Syria English, and come to here is very difficult in the first years. Now, and understand some people when talking to me. It's very important because if you want to go any place, you have to talk English.
Whose school is near the house?
This class is due to end in March, and teachers say without regular funding, they cannot meet the rising demand for lessons.
So many new Scots who are coming with incredible skills to offer our economy, and it's just language that is holding them back. Some of them have been waiting many years to get language support, and they're not able to reach their potential when they're at that point. So to then stop the learning, that's a real concern.
Last year, the Scottish Government offered a £500,000 uplift for the Glasgow ESOL partnership. That's the group of organisations teaching English to speakers of other languages. But education leaders want commitments that that funding will be made available year on year.
We have got sort of support for the budget, but we're working through that, and as soon as that is passed, then we'll be looking at the funding for next year. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to work through that, so that again we can have more sustainable funding to support these vital classes.
It's unclear what these learners will do when this class finishes next month, but for now they're grateful for the language skills they're gaining and what the future might hold. Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News, Glasgow.
Now, Rama's here with the sport and the build-up beginning already for Celtic's big game this week, Rama.
Sure is, John. Celtic against Bayern Munich in the Champions League tomorrow night. A place in the last 16 up for grabs. Celtic trailing from the first leg. We're with the squad in Munich, and within the last half hour or so, Brendan Rodgers has been speaking to the media.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
Good evening. Yes, Brendan Rodgers says his players will give it everything when they face Bayern Munich in the second leg of the last 16 Champions League playoff tie, adding anything is possible. Harry Kane, who scored in the 2-1 win for the German side in the first leg at Celtic Park last week, didn't train with the squad today and is a doubt for the clash. Ronnie Charters is in Munich.
Well, Brendan Rodgers and his players find themselves here in Germany for the second leg of their Champions League playoff tie against Bayern Munich. The Germans, of course, leading 2-1 from the first leg in Glasgow, but some optimism from the Celtic camp. They certainly caused the Bundesliga side some problems in that match last week. Celtic trained at Celtic Park this morning before flying out here to Germany, and they are hoping to pull off what would arguably be one of their biggest European results in their history if they can turn this tie around.
It's just having that courage and that bravery to go and play our game, and that'll be key for us tomorrow. So it's a beautiful pitch. The arena's amazing to come and play in, and it's, as I said, it's the second leg, so we want to make sure we leave everything out there on the field. And as I mentioned, anything is possible in the game. Anything can happen, and hopefully we can go and produce a performance that gives us the result in the end.
Obviously, we probably were the underdogs going into the game, and I'm sure there was a lot of talk that we was probably going to get battered and whatnot, and that wasn't the case. We put up a good test, and we're still in the tie. Ties on with a great goal at the end of the game and keeps us in it, so it's all to play for on Tuesday.
Well, it was a pretty decent warm-up match for Celtic ahead of this one tomorrow night. A 3-0 win over Dundee United at Celtic Park. Brendan Rodgers able to rest a number of key players ahead of this one tomorrow night. And in terms of Munich themselves, where Vincent Kompany's men, one of the favourites to win the entire competition in this season's Champions League, and they'll certainly be hopeful of making their advantage count here in Germany. 2-1 leading from the first leg and looking to make it to the last 16.
From my side, we always have the idea to prepare for both. What if they sit back? What if they press? And but then it's all the things in between that can decide a game as well. So we just want to be mentally ready to do what we've done so many times at home this season, which is I can't say getting the 3 points, but you know what I mean.
A huge night lies in store tomorrow for Brendan Rodgers and his players. It really doesn't get much tougher than this on the European stage. Bayern Munich in the Allianz Arena, where Celtic will be hoping to pull off a huge result and keep their European adventure alive. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport in Munich.
And more from Ronnie on tomorrow night's programme. Now, after being appointed the new Motherwell manager, Michael Wimmer says he's ecstatic to be joining the club. The German, who was previously the head coach of Austria Vienna and has been an assistant at Stuttgart and Augsburg, met the squad for the first time today. Motherwell say Wimmer was the standout candidate following a robust and strenuous recruitment process. He succeeds Stuart Carrawell, who resigned last month. Stephen Frail, who was assistant manager, has left the club. Now, Jack Butland admits he and his teammates have suffered following Rangers' shock Scottish Cup exit to Queen's Park, but says he wouldn't want to be anywhere else than Ibrox. The goalkeeper, who didn't feature in the Cup clash, was in superb form at Tynecastle yesterday, where the team returned to winning ways. Michael Steinwender says he's pleased to score his first goal for Hearts, but is disappointed they didn't take anything from the game. It's rare for a goalkeeper from the team which has won 3-1 to receive the Player of the Match award, but had it not been for a string of excellent saves from Jack Butland, the scoreline at Tynecastle may have been much different. Rangers' win over Hearts comes a week after their humiliating loss to Queen's Park.
It's a difficult week, you know, there's no day that you don't go by throughout the week just gone where you're not reminded of the week before. I've been at clubs where the intensity and the demand is not quite the same to win every week. And I can tell you that this is much more fulfilling for me. If you don't enjoy this and you don't enjoy being part of this challenge, then I don't know what you'll enjoy. So it's an incredible place to play. It still is.
Butland's opposite number, Craig Gordon, may feel he could have done better when Rangers hit the front in the 20th minute. Jamie McCart with the own goal. Early in the second half, Hearts levelled. Michael Steinwender scoring on his home debut with his dad watching on from the stand.
It's a nice feeling. My dad has birthday yesterday, so yeah, this was his birthday present. Yeah, it feels good for me and of course also for my family, but I'm still not happy with the result, and the team of course was not happy.
That's because Rangers scored twice in the second half, first through Václav Černý, then another own goal, and again from McCart.
The team showed the right mentality. The result is always more important. I hear that from you guys every week. So if the performance is good and we don't get the results, it's about the results at the end, always. So that stays in football.
I don't think 3-1 is a fair reflection of the game at all. It's not often you play Rangers and you have more of the ball, more passes, better chances, clearer chances, more shots, and we've done all of that today, yet we've lost.
Hearts are away to St Johnstone this weekend, while Rangers host St Mirren. Now, the Women's Premier League is shaping up for an exciting end to the season with a four-way tie at the top of the table following the weekend's games. Rangers moved to the summit on goal difference following their 6-0 win over Partick Thistle. Glasgow City, Celtic and Hibernian join the Ibrox club on 51 points with 11 games to go. From football to rugby, and Scotland coach Pete Horan says Finn Russell and Darcy Graham could return to face England at Twickenham this weekend as they continue their recovery from concussion. The pair are with Scotland at their training camp in Spain for Calcutta Cup preparations. Ali Price, Cameron Redpath and Ross McCann have been added to the squad. The Scots have faced criticism after losing to Ireland in the last match and are being challenged to prove their doubters wrong on Saturday.
Look, there's always a bit of spice, isn't there, in a Calcutta Cup game, and I'm sure it'll be no different this year. But yeah, that's the sort of thing that certainly, if I was a player, it would annoy me. So I'd be looking forward to getting out on the park and proving everyone wrong.
Finally, snooker, and Stephen Maguire praised Mark Selby's ruthlessness after the Scot narrowly lost to the Englishman in the Welsh Open final last night. The match was tied at 6 frames all before Selby won the next 3 frames to win 9-6. It was Maguire's first appearance at a ranking event final since 2020.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
That, folks, is all of your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow. John.
Raman, thank you. Well, we're hearing about freezing rain and snow and all the rest of it. Let's get the facts of it from Sean with the weather.
A breezy morning will be followed up with a flurry of fresh delights for lunch. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Well, today we've had this little weak weather front right over the top of us, giving us a lot of cloud, and I expect quite a few of you have seen some flakes of snow falling at times. That little weak weather front just thickening up the cloud enough to give us those little wintry sprinkles. Now, during tonight, we'll see some more persistent rain coming into the west, turning increasingly windy as well. Temperatures for us 3-4 degrees, but look at the temperatures over inland parts of the mainland, close to freezing. Even though we've got that cloud around during tonight, and that means the ground temperatures will be a little bit lower, so the pavements, the roads, and then you've got some rain falling onto those surfaces. Now, I've picked out some of the higher areas just south of the Central Belt, north of the Central Belt. I expect in these locations that there is a risk of a centimetre or two of snow falling through the night. Elsewhere, though, freezing rain, one of the main risks, as say that rain falling onto the colder surfaces and giving us the risk of some ice into tomorrow morning. So something to bear in mind. So a bit of a damp start to tomorrow. There'll be a mixture of some sleet and snow at times. Most of that easing away northwards during the afternoon. We'll still hang on to a lot of cloud. Windy weather down the west coast and across the Hebrides. So even though it's going to be 6 degrees, it'll feel more like 3 degrees here. And for most of us, still a chilly feeling day. But big changes on the way this week. Lots of rain coming in from the west on Wednesday. And look at the number of wind arrows that we've got. So still windy around the west coast. Our temperatures 7 or 8 degrees. Isla, Jura, Col, Tiree, we're getting up to about 9, 10 degrees Celsius, and that milder air spreading to all parts. So cold still for the time being, but that cold air we've had over the last week or so, we can wave that blue colour goodbye. It heads off to Scandinavia. Milder weather on the way. Could get temperatures up to about 12 degrees by Thursday and Friday. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's it for this evening. Don't forget Scotland tonight at 10:40 with Colin Mackay, when they'll be looking in greater detail at that European Leaders Summit. But for us, for just now, thank you for watching. Have a good night.